Well, hello and welcome to Botalks. As always, I'm John and this is the lovely Melissa. And today you may notice we have a special guest with us. We have Derik, the morning show host with Amanda from Mix 96.
That's me.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure to be a part of the Esthetics Center family. Come here and get treatments and sit down and talk with you guys about
well, you're part of the family, friend of the show, friend of the business.
Thank you.
And today we get to talk about Lori Loughlin.
We're excited about this.
The infamous.
The beautiful Lori Loughlin.
Yeah, she is beautiful.
She is. And if anybody is good at, augmenting anything, it's definitely Lori Loughlin. And when it comes to, college admissions and stuff like that. When it comes to changing records to get your kids into college for $500,000.
Right.
She's the person to go see.
That is true. Well, before we get into the drama, let's talk about the good. We like to start with the good. And so let's talk about Lori Loughlin. Full House. I'm a big fan. I know you're a big fan.
I'm a big fan. I got too many kids at home not to be a big fan.
So are you, okay, if you had to choose between Full House and Fuller House, which one do you like better?
Full House for sure, because I grew up on TGIF, Full House.
Sure.
But my kids are so deep into Fuller House that I've seen every episode probably like 4 times.
Wow.
So, oh my gosh, a year nonstop.
Okay.
So.
I started Fuller House. Have you seen it?
I haven't.
Okay.
So I'm a Full House fan, and I don't think there's anybody in America that does not know of or at least like Full House.
Right.
I mean, it was like a staple of
you have a heart
of a household to watch it. Right.
I've been to the house in San Francisco.
No, you haven't.
Who hasn't?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I have not.
It's like 2 hours away.
Okay,
you
so
gotta
look,
go.
I heard today, by the way, on Lombard Street, the most crooked street in the world. The city is so fed up with the amount of tourism, they're going to start charging people $10 to drive down it.
To drive.
So instead of doing that, you should go to
Full House.
Full House.
I will.
Yes.
And don't pay the money to go to Lombard Street.
In fact, I'm going to take my kids.
You should take your kids.
I should.
This is something I pride myself in. San Francisco, Full House. Chicago, speaking of TGIF, which house am I going to say?
Family Matters.
Family Matters.
Family Matters.
Yeah.
I used to live in the area. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so let's just start with the good, Full House. And I watched a few episodes of Fuller House. It was a little bit hard for me though. I just, so reminiscent of Full House back in the day.
Right.
And so let's do top episode of Full House. And I'll start. We talked a little bit about this.
We talked about it off the air a little bit, and I think that because you are the enthusiast, I couldn't even. It's funny is even though I watched it, I could not remember.
Yeah.
My favorite episode. In fact, neither of us could. So we'll leave that up to you.
Okay. Well, I know that Melissa's going to be in on this with me about Full House moments. So not necessarily episode, but just moments. And this is a moment. This is a TV moment that I actually think is like top 5 all time.
Which I think is so funny. But
I'm curious now. You've got me hooked.
Okay,
Tell me what it is.
So the wedding between Uncle Jesse and Aunt Becky, when he sings Forever, they play a montage.
I had forgotten that. I'd forgotten the song.
That's
right.
Okay, number 1, amazing Beach Boys song. Number 2, they play a montage. I always love it when TV shows from the 90s do this. When they play a montage of like the actors' actual childhood photos in the background, and so you see like John Stamos and Lori Loughlin's childhood pictures.
Right. She was a much cuter kid than he was. Let's just say.
Online right now, there's actually that was recently created. There's a photo gallery of her from age 1 to 53, I believe. She's 53 now, 52, 53. You can see her from every age from 1 to 53.
Really? I'm sorry we didn't find that.
Yeah.
That would've been
well,
fun.
we have some of those. I wish we had a year by year.
Yeah.
But that would be my number 1 Full House moment of all time. And it's like, if you haven't seen it, Google Uncle Jesse Forever Full House. He made like a rock version of it with Jesse and the Rippers after. But the wedding version is incredible.
With the gospel choir in the background?
Yes. And you told me that you modeled your wedding dress.
I was just kidding. I got married in 2006, okay?
That's kind of a super fan thing to do. I couldn't believe that.
He sent me the video and I said, that's what my wedding dress looked like.
Yeah.
Oh, really, John?
Okay, here's what I think is special about Full House. Name me a television show with more catchphrases per character than Full House. So we got Have Mercy, Uncle Jesse. We have You Got It, Dude from Michelle. We have
No Way, Jose.
Is that Stephanie?
Yeah, I think so. Stephanie or Michelle.
Okay.
Michelle had a whole bunch of them.
And then
Stephanie.
Cut It Out, right?
Cut It Out.
Uncle Joey. I mean, it's like every character has this iconic.
Mylanta.
I
forgot about that one.
Every character has this iconic catchphrase, and
Sure.
I've never seen anything like it. I don't think we've seen anything since.
I was trying to think of another show that came close to that, and I mean,
okay, so you have Different Strokes,
right,
which you're talking about, Willis.
Right.
Okay, and then what else? I mean,
I was thinking maybe Seinfeld, but
yeah, it's like, but every character has like what you're talking about,
right.
Willis. It's just incredible.
They have their catchphrase, right?
Yeah,
right, and it was really incorporated into pop culture. I mean, everybody's using these phrases, and my kids now insist on having their own catchphrases. So,
right.
Really?
Oh yeah, because
so
like,
every kid has a catchphrase.
Every kid in my house has a catchphrase, and when they start saying something repetitively. One of their brothers will go, "Oh, you got a new catchphrase," so then everyone starts using it.
Really?
Totally
Give us the
modeled
best.
after-
Give us the best catchphrase.
I can't even think of what they are right now. But
if you think of it.
if I think of it, I'll get back to you.
So yeah, that's Full House. Lori Loughlin, born in 1964. She joined Full House 1989, I believe. Since Full House ended, her career has mostly been like Hallmark Channel. You know, we're talking about
I
this.
think she did 50 or 60 Hallmark movies at least.
It's crazy. So okay, March 13th, 2019. All of this drama hits.
Yes.
And the FBI releases a warrant for Lori Loughlin's arrest. What was your guys' reaction when you find out? And it wasn't just Lori Loughlin. They called it Operation Varsity Blues.
Well, there was about 50 people in
Right.
total who
Yeah.
were under investigation.
Largest cheating scandal in the history of the FBI when it comes to college admissions.
Right.
Felicity Huffman, another kind of A-B
Who
list.
pled guilty.
Correct.
Yeah.
To avoid some of the drama here.
I know that the FBI was investigating, and they just don't investigate people unless they have some pretty concrete evidence before proceeding. So it leads me to believe that there's probably pretty substantive, substantial
Definitely.
evidence to get to bring charges, to follow through with them, and to eventually charge them and find them guilty, right? Mm-hmm. But it surprises me that Lori Loughlin and her husband are pleading not guilty.
Yeah.
And they've been given, even after they pled not guilty, they're still offered a deal. They said, "Are you sure you want to do that?"
Yeah.
Because you're talking about maybe a maximum of 20 years in jail.
Yep. Each.
So,
I mean,
right. And if they plea it down and it's 10 years, it's a decade, and they're already in their 50s. They'll be elderly by the time they get out of there.
so I'm glad that you
won't look at
mentioned
She won't look
she'll
at
look
Well, what kind of
35.
work
There you
will
go,
she have
Lori.
done in prison?
I don't know.
That's some ghetto work there.
Some pretty
Yeah.
crappy
Yeah.
microblading, probably.
She'll be using a shank to give herself plastic surgery.
Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about that, Derik. So March 13th, all of this comes out. April 10th. Mm-hmm. This is a story I got on Twitter on April 10th, and I actually felt really bad for her. But it was like, oh, that sucks for her. It came out that Lori and her husband thought that the FBI was bluffing on the plea deal. And so she faced 18 months. So both of them faced about 18 months in prison, but they pled not guilty because they thought the FBI was bluffing, like I said. So now they're facing between 5 and 20 years in prison. Mm-hmm. All because they didn't take the plea deal, which Felicity Huffman did.
Right.
And now Felicity is facing like this minimal prison sentence.
Well, she told the truth, right? That's the way
Yeah.
they see it. She pled guilty and she copped to it and said, And she, by the way, did you happen to see her statement? Because we read it on the air when it came out on Mix 96, and it was considering the depth of how bad all of this is, it was a very, I think, a heartfelt and sincere apology. I'm not saying not condoning her behavior, but it was really well written, very sincere, and she said, "I accept it. I made a mistake.
Totally.
This was, shameful, and that's it."
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it is shameful, and it's quite the entitled behavior, sort of, that these people have displayed. But I do sort of feel for them in that, like, what's the precedent for the crime? I mean, sure, it's fraud, it's mail fraud, it's embezzlement, all those things. But when they're doing it, when they're like, well, let's just pay a little extra money and get you in, did they see it as it's not fair, it's cheating, but did they see it as the crime that it really is? The crime that they're actually
I think that's a great question. I don't think that they did. But let's talk about the actual crime.
Okay.
So the actual crime was a man named Rick Springer set up a non-profit account for people to get their kids into college.
Who was, by the way, at one point here in Sacramento.
Oh, really?
I don't know if you know that.
I didn't know that.
He was in Sacramento at one point.
Recruiting?
During his life. I don't know that part, but I do know that he was here. So.
And here's the biggest thing for me. And okay, full admission, I'm a lifelong Notre Dame fan. I hate USC more than any other school in the world.
Oh, great. Our viewership just went...
Okay, I've seen every Notre Dame game.
Letters to him.
I've seen every Notre Dame game since 1993 when Ron Paulus was the quarterback. But what I couldn't understand is you have $500,000 to throw toward your kid's college.
Right.
Why USC? Like, I get it. It's a great school.
They're Hollywood people.
Well, SNL did a skit on this. Did you happen to see it?
I didn't.
No.
Where they made fun of her, and they, with the idea was that she was in jail with 3 other gentlemen, and they're talking about all the horrific crimes they committed. And she walks up and she's like, I paid $500,000 to get my kid into USC. And they're like, what? USC? Why would you do that?
Like, I can kind of understand Harvard, Yale,
Her daughter
Stanford.
apparently really wanted to go to USC.
Okay.
And that was like her thing. And she was obsessed with the idea of it. And that's what the genesis was behind that. That's why she did it.
Let's talk about her daughter really quickly. Then let's get to Lori's looks.
Yeah, that's a shame, actually.
I think of everything that doesn't help Lori's cause, her daughter, Olivia Jade, has to be kind of at the forefront. Like,
Right.
Felicity Huffman doesn't have a daughter that's going on YouTube and saying, I hate school.
Right.
I just want the partying and the college experience, the game
Right.
day experience.
Sure. Well, she strikes me as a very academic individual. So I'm sure she'll be fine getting into college without bribes.
Yeah. Well, she's got to be smart to have. I mean, she's got 2 million YouTube subscribers at the time the story came out.
Wait, is that what...
Well, I was going to say,
How does that make
it's
her
interesting
smart?
in our generation now what we define as intelligent, right?
Yeah.
And so, but let's not forget, she also has pretty powerful parents.
Correct.
Yeah.
She has her father
Her
is a designer. Her mother was, a well-known actress. So she has a lot of money, a lot of juice, a lot of suits backing her. So she can get a lot of things done.
Yeah.
But what's bad is you all saw the video where her daughter was saying, I hate school, I didn't want to do it, I don't care, I like to party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like stereotypical entitled Hollywood child, right? And then this scandal happens, and then she has to back it down and apologize.
I love school.
And now,
That's my favorite.
Inside sources are saying that she is terrified of the idea of having to testify against her parents, which very well may happen. I mean, the FBI is really doing their best to shake them down and scare them.
Yeah.
Because they're basically saying, we're going to throw the book at you. There's no games here. And so I'm assuming, by the way, just backtracking a little, Lori Loughlin and her husband must have an incredible defense team to plead not guilty.
They
must have a loophole, some sort of a way around it. They're going to be able to cut a deal some way, somehow, to be able to do that, because it's unusual considering the amount of what the FBI says they have substantive evidence to prove.
Maybe they're going to try to bribe the FBI.
Ooh.
I wouldn't put it past them at this point.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's very possible.
Neither would I. Yeah. I mean, they're definitely cunning. Like, there was the fake photos of Olivia Jade and the other daughter.
Playing sports.
Yeah, rowing on the rowing machine.
How do you do that?
It was photoshopped, right?
I can't believe
I thought it was real.
I could probably
at the
tell
gym.
you.
they
I
photoshopped her
I could probably
rowing,
tell
and then another one was, I think they wanted to Photoshop her. I forgot, playing lacrosse, and I'm thinking, how do you go to that length?
Yeah.
I mean, how untalented do your kids have to be that you have to force this to happen? That's the first thought.
And most of us are concerned about what our neighbors think. We're like, oh well, Joanne next door is going to know that my kid doesn't play lacrosse. She's never seen my kid playing lacrosse, but like they don't care.
Couldn't she have spend $10,000 on the best possible study guides in the entire world to help her kids get into school, and then take that money and maybe give kids scholarships to go to school?
That was a part of it, though. Is there was the fake rowing, and then there was this Rick Springer somehow bribing and manipulating the SAT results, the ACT results, the grades. I mean, it was just this elaborate thing.
Right.
So anyway, back to Lori's looks.
Right.
She's beautiful.
She gets more
Her
beautiful.
daughter's beautiful.
Yeah.
Her daughter's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, her husband's a really attractive guy,
Yeah.
if I'm going to say so
Yeah, he's
myself.
a good-looking guy too.
Yeah.
Sure, the whole family has great genetics.
Yeah.
Right.
So
That's a good palette to work with.
Let's start with
Yeah.
this photo from Lori Loughlin in 1989. It's kind of a weird picture. Obviously it's a weird look she's giving, but I mean, absolutely just God-given facial volume. That's the only way to say it.
Drop dead gorgeous.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, Melissa, what do you see when you look at her photo from 1989? So, just real quickly, I believe she's 25 in this photo.
Okay.
So at 25, what do you see?
So she is strikingly beautiful anyway. She's got just kind of this perfect face shape, these really high, full cheeks, gorgeous jawline. I think that she is one of those people that whether it's natural or augmented, she gets more beautiful with time. It's almost like just the subtle changes in volume have made her even prettier.
Is it true? I mean, maybe this is an obvious question, but if somebody already has those natural good genes, it must be very easy to work with them as far as any other, modifications they want to make.
I think so, but I think it does take a certain level of preventative maintenance with almost everybody. I mean, the skin just doesn't stay so smooth.
Sure,
even, certain people. Well,
lifestyle, diet, obviously counts tremendously.
But and then just maintaining that volume through the cheeks. Obviously, she's going to have a little more work to work with. But usually, it's little tweaks with people who just have these naturally gorgeous bone structure.
And obviously, this is all natural. I mean, it's 1989.
Right.
It's pre-Botox, pre-filler. I mean, this is just God-given beauty right here.
Even in 89, plastic surgery existed, right? But it wasn't to the degree that it does now, and they weren't perfected.
And typically, it was taking away more than it was adding at that point in time. And so at 25, obviously, she wouldn't need any kind of a facelift, but you just see that sharp jawline. You see just so much volume, and it's an interesting type of volume. It's not that real sharp cheekbone volume. It's just this natural fullness. It's just like, oh my goodness.
She doesn't have, she's nice and thin, but she doesn't get kind of that hollowing through the temples. And there's really, really subtle changes in volume as you age, where you can kind of see somebody's, facial volume sort of deplete. And she just has this perfectly heart-shaped, gorgeous little face that she has maintained perfectly.
Yeah, it's just stunning. We have her as a teenager. I believe this is her around 15, looks 16 like years old. And even if we can put both of those on the screen, the change from this to that photo we just looked at, I mean, what are you seeing there?
So to me, now this is pre-Botox, so it's hard to say, but just the aging and natural kind of progression of her face and maturing, her eyebrows look higher to me as she ages. So she was one of those smart people who didn't kind of follow really strong trends with her face, like over plucking, in the 90s and things like that. So she's always kind of maintained a really pretty eye shape and brow and all that, but just her face just thinning out that little bit seems to have given lift in all the right places.
Yeah. And then we fast forward a little bit to this is Lori Loughlin in 1989. So another 1989 photo.
That's Lori Loughlin we all know and love.
Yeah. So this is her
one
first
that we see
season.
on TV, right? Sure.
Her first season on Full House. One of my favorite moments when Jesse and Becky meet, and she's beautiful. She's like elegant, beautiful though.
I swear this is a hard one for me because she is so naturally pretty, and I think that she just gets better with age. And whether that's services that someone is providing, or she just is one of those people that's going to age beautifully.
Well, in your opinion,
in my opinion,
maybe we're going to. No, I'm saying in your opinion. I don't mean to jump ahead, but what kind of work has she had done?
Well, let's fast forward.
That's what I'm interested to know. How, I mean, obviously, genetics are great, and some people age really well, and some people have great lifestyles, and all those things help. But it's not out of the question in Hollywood.
So here we have a photo of her in 2008. It's definitely, she looks very different. So a lot of that kind of smooth, round facial volume went away, and now you are seeing the more angular cheekbones. I mean, what's going on here, Melissa?
So I'm seeing natural volume loss, which on her face could handle because it was so full to begin with. I think she probably has added a little volume in back through the cheeks, and definitely using her Botox, which is good.
Yeah, and the easiest way to see if somebody's using Botox is, do they have any lines between the eyebrows? For me, and if that's like flat as a board, you know if somebody's over 35, 40.
Probably knocked out that.
If there's no expression lines, I guess,
right. And then another easy telltale. I mean, obviously the big lines here, but if there's nothing here when they smile, and so definitely using Botox.
I think it's possible that she's had a brow lift. I think it's possible.
Okay.
She's got a really nice, beautiful arched brow. It's much higher than it was when she was a teenager.
Yeah,
I mean, everybody would want to look like her, not act like her, I guess. But they would want to.
I would guess at her age, I would guess maybe there's been a mini facelift in there.
Possible. a good one.
Yeah. I mean, you don't really see any signs of it. But so why did her face go from the smooth to the angular? Is that filler? Is that a cheek implant?
I think it's just a natural reduction in volume. Kind of, she's thinned out and elongated, which is pretty natural, normal. And then they've added some filler back in through the cheeks. I don't think she has a cheek implant.
Yeah, it's interesting that with what you're saying, comparing her. We'll put another old photo, maybe like the second 1989 photo to this. I mean, I think both of us would feel she's probably more attractive at this point in her life than she was at 25.
Well, at 25, she still kind of had that, for lack of a better explanation, she still had that baby face, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that she's more attractive now at age 52, 53 than she was at 25.
Yeah.
I agree.
So the last photo that we have, this is her with her daughters in 2019. So this is this year. What are we seeing here? Is it just kind of more of the same?
I think it's more of the same. I think those girls are blessed. It's just a beautiful family. Yeah, but I think definitely for her,
This is her daughter. This is the Instagram stuff.
Yeah, her with Olivia Jade, and you see that same volume in Olivia Jade's face that Lori had at her age.
Genetic, sure.
Yes.
It's not artificial.
Which is another way that we know that obviously in '89 we already knew, but another way to prove it was all genetic.
Right. Well, and you can see some of the natural volume loss through her temples. That's kind of what I was talking about. So instead of having that really round, sort of youthful baby face, she has a little more definition through there. She's looking a little bit more elongated in the face.
And what we call, we have a funny word for that. Happens to everybody.
Curious what it is.
So when you're losing kind of that volume in through here, it's called peanut head.
Peanut. So this creates an elongation. Is that what you're saying?
And it's a real kind of.
It's kind of a
figure
curve
eight.
that
I see.
looks like a peanut.
Yeah,
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can feel that.
Yeah, we feel that all the time.
What can't they do at Esthetics Center in El Dorado Hills? That's the question. By the way, when I first got here and I was first, meeting everybody and getting to know everything, I couldn't believe the amount of services
We do a lot.
that you had. I mean, even my mom, I was talking to her the other day. She's like, "Do they do microblading?" I'm like, "No, I don't think they do." And then I open it up. I'm like, "Yeah, they do. Actually, they do everything.
Yeah, anything for the face.
Anything.
The face
So
press.
Anything and
peanut
everything
head,
can
all
be
that.
done." Yeah.
But so anyway, just to put a bow on this thing, Lori Loughlin, complicated character.
Right. It makes me so sad because we just love that, it was such a feel-good show with so many sort of moral lessons, and so it's just
The irony of that, isn't it? That
Well,
they would have so many moral lessons in that show, and that it's a shame to see people that have so much power and accomplishments throw it all away like that.
Yeah.
It's really shameful. But then this is an interesting. One last point is a really interesting argument is we would like to say that we would do the right thing, and sometimes when it comes to our kids.
Right.
We're very protective, and even if that means we want to give them what they want, even if they don't deserve it,
And or what we think they should want.
I mean, in smaller, right, exactly, or what they think they're entitled to, even in smaller degrees. And we had this conversation on the air, and we said, have you ever helped your kids get out of trouble? And it was inspired by this, and people fessed up and they said, I've gotten my kid out of jail. I've done things to get them, through school. I've done everything that I can for them because they're my kids. Right. And, I'm not, although I do think a high degree was morally wrong. At the same time, I don't know what it's like because I don't have any kids of my own to feel like I really want to do everything I can for them.
Right.
It's hard to see them suffer.
Right.
And if money's not an issue, I mean, if you have, say, $100 million.
Sure.
Right,
which they probably do together, if not more.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he was one of the most famous designers of my childhood.
Hundreds of millions, probably.
So.
Sure. Yeah.
But with that, Derek, thank you so much for joining us.
Me.
Where can the people find you?
Every weekday morning, 5 a.m. to 10 a.m. on 96.1, Mix 96 in the Sacramento area.
And again, Twitter, Instagram.
Also on Twitter. Twitter for me is Darik. That's how I spell my name. For real. Derek
Perfect.
For real.
So Derek for real, 96.1.
Also on Insta too, same for me.
Every weekday. Just great to have you. And until next time, live confidently.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.